Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Kami dari grup kedua, kami akan menjelaskan tentang teori pendukung tentang permasalahan yang ada di grup pertama. Gitu. Mungkin untuk mengefisiensikan waktu, mulai ke pembahasan yang pertama oleh speaker yang pertama oleh saudara Arif.
Okay, baik, terima kasih. So the first article is, we're going to talk about the problem. The first one is the cause of anxiety in speaking English among tertiary level students. Well, for the justification here, there are varieties of reasons on students speaking anxiety, such as lack of knowledge, lack of support, and low self-efficacy. The involvement of oral and verbal contribution are on tertiary level will also support the improvement on student speaking skill and decrease the level of anxiety. Agent 10 2004. And then the next one is the specific situation that causes anxiety in speaking English among tertiary level students. Well, for the justification is the study conducted by Hayati and Salmani Nodusan 2017 on how the situation happened at the tertiary level with the title Source of Foreign Language Speaking Anxiety. So, this one talking about the study is the one that is suited to the problem that was searched to be accomplished. According to their findings, some of the most common sources of anxiety for the Iranian EFL learners when speaking English include fear of making a mistake or being judged negatively by others. Number two is lack of confidence in one English speaking abilities, and then difficulty expressing oneself in English due to limited vocabulary and grammar knowledge. Social factors such as being in an unfamiliar or uncomfortable environment or having to speak with native speakers. And the last one is pressure to perform well, such as in exam or presentations. And for the last one is the strategies which might be used by students to overcome anxiety. Well, for the justification is anxiety is a common experience for many students, but it can negatively impact academic performance and overall well-being. One strategy for overcoming anxiety is cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. CBT is a form of therapy that helps people identify and change negative thought patterns and behavior that contribute to anxiety. Several studies have shown the effectiveness of CBT in reducing anxiety in high school students. A meta-analysis by McAvoy 2016 found that CBT was effective in reducing anxiety in university students. Thank you very much. Back to moderator, Asif.
Okay, next to the next speaker, Sandy, I'm sure.
Okay, thanks. For the first, lack of knowledge of vocabulary and grammar, which has error in the selection of verbs for the past tense in the development when he writes justification. The theory you are referring to appears to be related to language development and acquisition of grammar and vocabulary, especially it focus on the difficulties that some individuals may have when using past tense verbs in their writing. To learn more about this theory and related topic, I suggest in searching for academic articles and books in the fields of linguistics, development psychology, and education. Here are a few resources that may be helpful. Source by Robert Owens, Junior Language Development and Introduction. And then difficulty understanding and using and correct syntax, which make an overgeneralization error when one should not use verb in a sentence. Justification one theory that may help explain that phenomenon is the interlanguage theory proposed by linguist Larry Schlinker. According to this theory, language learner develop an interim language system that is neither the first language nor the second language. But a unique combination of the two, this interim system is known as interlanguage and is shaped by the learner prior language knowledge, input from the target language, and the learner's own attempt to make a sense of language. And then for the last, limited access to research and support, while the unavailability of a good model writing English did not stop him from learning English, so he just let everything in his mind out regardless of the many grammatical errors that were produced. This means that limited access to resource and support become a problem in the second language acquisition process. Justification in terms of the specific case of limited access to resource and support in second language acquisition, research has shown that it can be significant barrier to language learning. For example, study Carlos and College found that English language learners in Hong Kong face numerous obstacles, including limited access to resources such as textbooks and language learning materials and lack of support from teachers and peers. These factors were found to have a negative impact on their motivation and proficiency in English. Another study by Kim and others examine the experience of international students in a United States who face limited access to resource and support in their language learning. The study found that the students of often struggle with academic writing due to a lack of familiarity with a norm and expectation of academic English, as well limited access to writing support service. That's enough for me. Back to moderator.
Okay, for the next article, the problem for the fourth article will be taught by Ilvan. So, Mr.
Yes, thank you, Asad. For here, I want to explain about the problem. There's a problem in justification. The first one is vocabulary acquisition, where there are error in the use of verb, as well as problem where he does not know what the meaning of the word, so he only try to guess from the context through body gesture. The justification is that the verb are often used to refer to a type of state rather than an action. Essentially, these verbs are manipulated to reflect view, sentiment, relation, sentence, condition of being undimensioned. Yet, they do not typically come in a progressive aspect. Through they may undertake temporal expressions such as the moment, now, and this is perhaps the reason behind EFL college student veil to identity and use this verb in context. Okay, next problem is difficulty in using grammar and syntax correctly, where there are grammatical errors when speaking, as well as confusion in the structure of the language. The justification is natural language processing technology is a theory, an approach for exploring and developing successful human communication with the rapid growth of computer science and type technology. If there are errors in the semantic units for words and sentence, it will affect future text analysis and semantic understanding, eventually affecting the full application system performance. As a result, intelligent word and grammatical error detection and correction in English text are significant and difficult aspects of natural language processing. Next problem, pronunciation and intonation, where he wants to speak fluent, but because he used to the L1 pronunciation, he still has to adjust. Justification, the development of English as a global language has an impact on pronunciation instruction, where compatible witty should be objective rather than pronunciation that sounds like native speaker. Okay. Next problem, anxiety and motivation. First one, anxiety occurs because of fear of failure in learning, and the second one is learning is done according to the influence of motivation. In this case, He needs English so he can communicate because he wants to travel as it well known that he is an exchange student in England whose main language is English, of course. He also has a low score of intrinsic factor which seems to indicate that he saw no interest in the learning process for internal reasons such as personal development or enjoyment of the learning process. Justification is refer to a specific type of anxiety that is experienced in tense, exam, and other similar testing situation. Okay, I think that's enough for me. Back to moderator.
Okay, so this will be the last article that explain about the problem. Will be reviewed by me. Okay, the first is the influence of students' motivation in second language acquisition learning through native cultural speakers. Okay, so justification for this problem is student motivation is important because less motivation will halt the learning process. Besides that, motivation is crucial for successful learning a second language. Okay, as it greatly influences the learner's attitude towards the language. Okay. For the second problem is selection of varied learning tasks and improve student skill in language. Okay, justification. Varied learning tasks can be beneficial for improving second language by decreasing the amount of mental effort needed. Okay, so promoting social learning and encouraging learners to feel more independent, skilled, and connected. And learning strategy is a goal-directed and conscious decision-making process which can improve student effectiveness and efficiency of learning. And the third problem is difficulties in understanding the psychology of students in interaction during learning. So the justification is when teachers struggle to understand the psychology of their student during the learning, it can lead to ineffective teaching methods, communication problems, and missed opportunities for language development. Teachers need to first identify the most relevant individual sources of performance, then variation in their context, and next design to maximally cope with inhibitive psychological or cognitive factors which associate with their learner's rate and growth of learning. And the next problem is limited background knowledge and cultural familiarity. Justification. Limited background knowledge and cultural familiarity can make it difficult for a student to learn a new language. This is because new language often involve learning new words, grammar rules, and cultural concepts. Besides that, language transfer pertains to how a person exciting knowledge of a language affects their acquisition of a new language. And the last problem is likely to cause anxiety and stress when required to be active in student-centered learning. Okay, for the justification is anxiety and stress can be involved in student-centered learning because it is what is it? It requires more autonomy and responsibility and involves social interaction and self-evaluation. It is not well understood how anxiety levels may change during the casual conversation with peers that do not have a set endpoint, but additionally, the impact of speakers' everyday interaction and their perception of the conversation on their emotional response is still uncertain. Okay, maybe that's all from our group. The last we say, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Maybe we get next to the next group for the third group. Time is yours. Thanks.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
We are from third group, and in here we're going to explain the reason for the problem in ESL learning. Okay, we have five articles, and the first is Excited Speaking English Among Tertiary Level Learners of English as a Second Language. article focuses specifically on the problem of anxiety in speaking English among tertiary level students in Sri Lanka. While it doesn't provide an exhaustive list of problems that affect SLA, it does suggest that anxiety can be a significant obstacle to language learning, particularly in speaking and communication. The article suggests that anxiety can lead to avoidance behaviors, fear of negative evaluation, and, and decreased confidence, all of which can hinder language acquisition and use. And the reason of the problem, uh, because anxiety was identified as issue in second language acquisition in the study, the most prevalent reason in this case are a lost confidence in the English language, a lack of adequate information about grammar rules, and a lack of opportunity to practice the language with people who have strong speaking ability. Anxiety in language learning has a negative impact on language achievement. Furthermore, according to Pekron and Elliott, anxiety may have negative effects on cognitive processes such as memory and attention. Next to second article, please.
Second article, an analysis of second language acquisition, the case study of a Hong Kong learner of English. This article discusses some of the problems that occur in a case study of a Hong Kong learner, student D, who is an exchange student in England, of English in SLA, second language acquisition. Some of these problems include um, A. Vocabulary acquisition, where there are errors in the use of verbs as well as problems where he does not know the meaning of the words, so he only tries to guess from the context through body gestures. The reason of the problems is because the quality of a student's vocabulary affects the four language skills, namely listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Mastery of language cannot be separated from vocabulary. Vocabulary is one aspect of language acquisition. According to McCallum 2008, vocabulary mastery refers to the ability to use vocabulary in both spoken and written forms. Therefore, a person's skills in both spoken and written language are largely determined by their ability to process vocabulary, resulting in good spoken and written language. Consequently, if students lack knowledge of vocabulary or do not master a wide range of vocabulary, it will pose a problem as it directly affects their listening, speaking, reading, and writing skills. Next, difficulty in using grammar and syntax correctly, where there are grammatical errors when speaking as well as confusion in the structure of the language. The reason of the problem is because grammar is one of the most important elements in language learning. Having a command and correct grammar is crucial for speaking English fluently and confidently. Knowledge of grammar helps students avoid mistakes that would make their English sound foreign to native speakers. Furthermore, grammar plays a significant role in one's social life, as many language learners strive to communicate effectively with others. Improving their understanding of grammar becomes essential. Using proper grammar ensures that listeners can comprehend our intended message, and it helps us overcome communication difficulties that may arise due to incorrect grammar. According to Karaf, in Misriya 2011, grammar encompasses various standards in language structure, including sound, form, word, sentence, and meaning. C. Pronunciation and intonation, where he wants to speak fluently, but because he is used to the L1 pronunciation, he still has to adjust. The reason of the problems, intonation is crucial when pronouncing and sorry, intonation is crucial when pronouncing or receiving sentences because it significantly impacts the process of conveying and receiving message. It also plays a key role in sentence clarity. Pronunciation is equally important as it can lead to misunderstandings if done incorrectly. Intonation refers to the pattern of pitch change used by speakers when uttering sentences of or their parts. Kridalaksana 2009, and it plays a vital role in distinguish sentence meanings. Additionally, for non-native speakers, pronunciation is particularly important in English, as incorrect pronunciation can hinder effective communication. To improve pronunciation, regular practice is necessary. That's all. Back to moderator.
Okay, next to the third article, going to explain why. And then let me see. Okay, for the third article is case study the role of learning strategies, personality and motivation in the second language acquisition, writing proficiency of a Somalian student. This article discusses a case study that examines the role of learning strategies, personality and motivation in second language acquisition of writing proficiency for a Somali student. For the first problem is lack of knowledge of vocabulary and grammar, which has errors in the selection of verbs for the past tense in the development when he writes. The reason of the problem is the first factor triggering the second language acquisition is learning strategies, which are the practical approaches or techniques that learners employ to try to learn second language. Learning strategies may be applied to a simple undertaking, such as learning new vocabulary, or more complex ones, such as language production. And then the second problem is the difficulty understanding and using the correct syntax, which makes an overgeneralization error where one should not use verb in a sentence. The reason of the problem is people have trouble learning second language. Acquisition is one of difficulty understanding and using the correct syntax, which makes the overgeneration error where one shouldn't use verb in a sentence. In second language acquisition, of course we are familiar with the syntax, that this is not a reference for insiders to stop learning. And then the third problem is difficulty in organizing and developing ideas in writing, where he also made mistakes in distinguishing between verbal and non-verbal sentence. For the reason of the problem is developing ideas writing. In developing ideas writing is a problem that often occurs among students because in verbal or non-verbal it is very different, and we even have to master grammar itself more. Then, in second language acquisition, learning students tend to be more stuck due to difficulty memorizing vocabulary, lack of reading, and lack of external relations that can hinder the learning process in second language acquisition itself. Okay, okay, next report article explained by Sinta.
Okay, thank you, Moderator. The fourth article is interaction, its effects in learning English as a second language in the classroom. The article discusses about psycholinguistic perspective that has been used to assess the effectiveness of the acquisition of language through interaction. The first problem is interference from first language to second language interaction. The reason of the problem Why there is interference from the interaction of the first language to the second language is because the environment is not used to it so it needs adaptation. When adapting, of course, there will be a lot of repetition in vocabulary, in interpreting meaning, and also interaction that are carried out. In terms of acquisition, repetition in conversation can serve to consolidate what is being learned. Second, 19 and 98. The second problem is limited exposure and experience with the target language. The reason of the problem, why limited exposure and experience with the target language is a problem in SLA, is because unfamiliarity makes it difficult for the learner. When you are used to interacting using the second language you are learning, it will be easier for you to communicate using the second language. Interaction is actually the heart of communication. Brown HD 19 and 94. The third problem is difficulty in understanding and generating new communication in the target language. The reason of the problem, why the difficulty in understanding and generating new communication in the target language is again due to the unfamiliarity of using the new language. So it is necessary to repeat the vocabulary of the second language in communicating and interacting to generate habit and facilitate understanding of the language. Lister 19 and 98 regards repetition as a means of developing conceptual understanding. Enough for me, back to the data.
Okay, thank you. Next, last article will explained by Abi. Okay, that is yours.
The first article is student-centered education in context of second language. The article focuses on how the implementation of the notion student-centered learning in second language acquisition. It is about the task of our study include analyzing features of student-centered learning, its structure, function, and factor contributing to its efficient implementation. It suggests that the following problems can affect reading comprehension in second language. The first problem is the influence of student motivation in second language acquisition, learning to culture speakers. The reason of the problem, according to Russian and Bagravnova, have studied the issue and specific of teaching a second language, second foreign language. They agree that learning one more foreign language helps to create and develop multicultural identity of students. It is obvious that the more language and cultures the student learns, the more tolerant and empathic toward representative from other cultures they become. And therefore, for the acquisition of a second language by speaker of the original culture will affect student motivation to acquire a second language. And second, selection of varied learning tasks and improve student skill in language. And the reason of the problem, according British and according British research suggests that taking into account some factor in order to choose the right task. These factors are divided into those related to student and those related to the kind of task. This is why the selection of learning task is very important to improve the language skill in students. And the third, difficulties in understanding the psychology of student in interaction during learning. And the reason of the problem is student-centered learning is not intended to form a personality with certain traits, but to create a condition for the full manifestation of personal qualities in students. Developing the personal function of the process of education which determine the formation of the personality and are needed by the contemporary public. The essence of student-centered learning lies in the reality that the student personality and it is principle, value, and priority, which are considered the basis for deciding all other part of the education process.
Okay, thank you. Maybe enough for our group. Thank you. Next to another group, please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Uh, for this time, we are going to discuss about the factors that cause difficult in learning second language acquisition. So, without any further ado, the first will be discussed by Kusoto. And it's yours.
Okay, for the first article we analyze is entitled Anxiety in Speaking English Among Tertiary Level Learners of English as a Second Language. The problems found in this article focus specifically on the problem of anxiety in speaking English among tertiary level students in Sri Lanka. While it doesn't provide an exhaustive list of problems that occur in SLA, it does suggest that anxiety can be a significant obstacle to language learning, particularly in speaking and communication. The article suggests that anxiety can lead to avoidance behaviors, fear of negative evaluation, and decreased confidence, all of which can hinder language acquisition and use. Then, next about the factors that cause difficulty learning SLA. These problems can occur due to internal and external factors. The first is the internal factors. There are personality, for example, like lack of confidence, which will have an effect on SLA and will make much difference to learning efficiency. And first language proficiency, for example, like lack of proper knowledge, like grammar rules, vocabulary, and etc. Then the second is external factors. The factor included in the external factor is the environment. For example, like lack of support from school, teachers, parents, and friends. And the theory that supports these factors is from Always 2020, who states that the cause of anxiety in speaking English among tertiary level students in academic context are different from student to student, but common reasons are lack of confidence about the English language, lack of proper knowledge about the grammar rules, and lack of the opportunity to practice the language with the person who are having good speaking ability, lack of the knowledge of vocabulary, nervousness, and lack of support from school, teachers, parents, and friends. That's all from me. Back to moderator.
Thank you, Ms. Martin, for the discussion. Well, the next point will be discussed by me in the article of an analysis of second language acquisition, the case of a Hong Kong learner of English. Well, the problems we found here there are four problems such as vocabulary errors, the difficulty in using grammar and syntax, pronunciation and intonation, and the last, anxiety and motivation. So the factors that cause these difficulties in learning SLA, there are two factors, the internal and the external. So from the internal factors, there are the motivation, first language proficiency, and personality factors. For the motivation, there is a lack of desire to learn, which is supported by the theory based on Smith. He said motivation plays an essential role in the success of language learning. And based on Sun 2019, he said that there is no doubt that motivation plays an important role in a second language learning. And then the second one, the first language proficiency factors. That is the lack of knowledge like grammar, syntax, vocabulary, pronunciation, and intonation, which is supported by the theory from Lado 1970 and 57. He assumed that in foreign language learning, it will be difficult to acquire if the elements in second language are different from first language. He mentioned that he has 6 assignments including business reports, which are about 2,500 to 3,000 words, and group presentation, which is around 1,000 words. She also finds it hard to reach the minimum word counts. She said that in order to improve her writing, she needs to enhance her grammar and reading as well. In summary, primary needs to learn English are for communication and academic writing to overcome some spoken errors at the college her house. And then the last factors from internal factors is personality. That is, the lack of confidence has an impact on anxiety, which is supported by the theory based on Acquistion 1981. It can be concluded that different personalities exert an impact on whether the learner can speak fluently in oral English in second language acquisition. Okay, and then for the external factors, there is one factor. The external factor is environment, that is the different culture and learning styles, which is supported by the theory from Crystal 2003. It seems to have the view that she can travel around the world and explore new cultures if she could speak English fluently, since English is a global language. And then, based on Brown 2000, he stated that learning styles are the manner in which learners perceive and process information in learning situations. And the last theory is from Onsera 2013.
External factors greatly influence a person's success in acquiring and mastering a second language. So maybe that's from the second article. Move to the next article. Will be discussed by Kandi.
Okay, thank you to the moderator. And I will deliver the third article is about case study, the role of learning strategies, personality, and motivation in the second language acquisition, writing proficiency of Sumerian students. And for the problems, there are first, lack of knowledge of vocabulary and grammar, second, difficulty understanding and using the correct syntax, and then difficulty in organizing and developing ideas in writing, lack of motivation and interest, and last, limited access to resources and support. And for the factors that cause difficulty learning SLA, those problems can occur due to internal factors. Internal factors, there are personality, motivation, and first language proficiency. And for the personality, different personality characteristics. And for the theory, personality characteristics have an effect to language learning process. Some of them are acute, have correlation to the learning of the language which has been studied, even though provide different results. Extroverted person is said to be well suited to language learning from Nigma to 2020, and Sharp 2000 conclude that an extrovert is said to receive energy from outside sources, whereas an introvert is more concerned with the inner world of ideas and is more likely to be involved with solitary activities. And then for motivation, lack of desire to learn. The theory, motivation is one of the factors that gives students willingness to learn English. From NIGMA 2020, there is no doubt that motivation plays an important role in a second language learning. From SAN 2019. And last is first language proficiency. Limited learning strategies so impact on lack of knowledge of grammar, syntax, vocabulary, pronunciation, and intonation. And for the theory, the first factor triggering the second language acquisition is learning strategies, which are the particular approaches or techniques that learners employ to try to learn second language. They use learning strategies when dealing with some problems in learning language. Strategies, according to Brown's 2000 definition, are specific methods of approaching a problem or task modes of operation for achieving a particular end, or plain designs for controlling and manipulating certain information. I think it's enough for me. And back to the moderator.
Thank you, Ania, for your discussion. Well, the last will be discussed by Ulfa. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, based on the article interaction, its effect in learning English as a second language in classroom. There are several problems, including interference from L1 to SLA interaction, limited exposure and experience with target language, difficulty in understanding and generating new communication in the target language, limited access to feedback and correction, insufficient attention and focus in negotiation, and poor interaction ability. So the factors that causes the problem is caused by two external factors. There are environment of interaction and environment of classroom. So this is accordance with the theory of Brown Multimed say that interaction is considered important word for the ESL teachers. In the era of communicative language teaching, interaction is in fact the heart of communication. It is what communication is all about. And according to the theory from 2017, the classroom compact enough that there was no hindrance and echo in the process of
according to the theory of Ansira, 2013 said that environmental factors greatly influence a person's success in acquiring and mastering a second language. Next, based on the article Student-Centered Education in Context of Second Language Learning, there are several problems, including the influence of student motivation, selection of varied learning tasks and improve student skills in language, unstructured learning strategies and skill lack of motivation and interest, and anxiety and stress. So the factors that causes the problem is caused by two internal factors. There are motivation, motivates, and personality. So for the motivation and motivates, this is accordance with the theory of S.L. Rubinstein claims that motivation is based on meaningful things that are very important to someone, which ultimately acts as the motivate and support and purpose of their activities and determines the core of the individual. Therefore, the learning process must be determined by the needs and specific goals of student. Blue Hova and Sorokina 2018. The motive is a need or desire behind the action of a person. And the next theory is one of the factors that influence second language acquisition is motivation. With strong motivation, second language learners will try to acquire a second language, and motivation refers to the overall process or motivate carried out in effort to master a second language with a specific purpose between 2020. And next factors is personality. This is in accordance with the theory of New Feng Shan. Personality factors consist of self-esteem, anxiety, depression, spirit of adventures, extraversion and introversion, and others that will have an effect on SLA and will make much difference to learning efficiency. Well, that's all from me. Back again to the moderator.
Thank you for your explanation. From everything we have discussed, thank you. And last, wassalamualaikum